After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
All right, we got published author Brandon Crisp, and here is his book. Soon to be a bestseller near you.
I hope so.
You hope so? Yeah. You got a lot at stake at this, don't you? you might know a little closer on the mic, bud.
No. There we go.
That's too close. No, it's fine. Just
giving me some.
Yeah, but anyway, I want to talk about not just the content of the book. We'll talk about that certainly, but we're also going to talk about the process of writing a book, because everybody thinks they can write a book. Just sit down and start typing, right? Yeah.
That's what I thought when I first started.
Yeah, right. Well, I have been suggested by the people, not many, but that I should write a book, nonfiction book, right? History. And I actually gave it some serious consideration, but it's a lot harder than it looks.
Like nonfiction would be a lot harder because you have to do a lot of research. Fiction, I don't know, make stuff up.
Well, the thing about nonfiction is that I don't know what kind of audience would buy a book. I mean, the published author George Will, of course, he has written about 9 books, right?
Yeah.
The only 2 he said that ever sold was his 2 books on baseball. And so the rest were all, very niche audience. Anyway, how you doing, Josh?
Fantastic.
Do you read science fiction?
No.
Okay, fine.
Not a whole lot.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Tough audience.
One less of the bestseller list here. Okay, no. He's too busy reading what? What do you read? Political stuff.
I like philosophy.
This has philosophical themes.
That's right.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd be willing to check it out.
All right. Good. Anyway,
Salesman now.
Yeah. Well, you got to be if you're going to sell a book, and for what you're telling me, you got to make somebody happy with it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about that too. Or let's talk about the sponsors first, so we can get that done, so they can get their credit for making this possible, for promoting the arts as it is. Our place. So I'll be there Monday morning for the men's Sunday school breakfast, where we will vainly attempt to solve the world's problems. I got to turn my phone down. I've been doing this for 6+ years, and I still forget to turn my phone down. Anyway, thank you, Allard, at our place. It's always a great place to do business, to hang out. I was there seeing one of my B&I buddies, Jack Matson with Legal Shield. Throw you out there, shout out. And it just, the service and the food is good, and it's a good place to do business. Also, at Gina's, I was there Monday night. I was kicked out of the house. My wife had prayer meeting, and so I don't get to hear what they're praying about. I'm like, that makes me suspicious. All right, well, you talked about me? All right, why aren't you talking about me? But anyway, so we were, there you go, last year. But anyway, it was a great place as always. They had the ball games on, had a pizza. You've been there before, I know.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, because back when you were running for office, I'm going to throw a few questions about that at the end. You just get ready for it, all right? But anyway, so Gina's Pizza is a great pizza, and it's a great atmosphere, and the service is great, and, you get to know the people that work there, and it's always a lot of fun. Also, one of my B&I buddies, Old Pro Roofing with John Williams, 817-734-2756. He is very busy these days because they go pretty much to the DFW area and beyond, and so you're going to get a lot of hail damage coming up, and you're going to get a lot of people knocking on your door about roofs. You want to do business with hometown folks, right? Old Pro Roofing is in Old Town, and so you want to talk to somebody that does business here, pays taxes here, etc. 817-734-2756, and John will come give you a free inspection, and he won't tell you a bunch of razzmatazz about your roof, try to upsell you, say your roof's fine or it's not, and there you go. So 817-734-2756. Also another B&I buddy, Jeff Kelly with the Withington Agency here in town, 817-781-0546. So if you're moving in and around this Johnson County area, I don't know if I go to Godly very much these days. Have you been hearing what's going on there?
No.
Oh, my.
Oh, no, I think I did.
Yeah. They made some more arrests.
I did see that yesterday.
Yeah, but so maybe if you want to move out of Godly into Burleson, Jeff's is your guy. He can get you a new place there. He has several homes listed, so give him a call at 817-781-0546. Also, Burleson News Express with Rod Lewis. Have you seen these newspapers?
I have not. No.
Okay, it's a print edition. You ought to get a hold of him because he needs content, and this would be a great way to publicize your book. Y'all can meet at Daydream, where the newspaper is distributed, among about 24 other places, and y'all can talk about, what you did to write this book and all this other stuff, and you'll be front page story. So,
Awesome.
it's all these ways of getting the word out, not just, here or at the newspaper, but it adds up. And pretty soon.
I need it everywhere.
When, Martin Scorsese finds this book and he wants to make a movie out of it, of course, he'll have to add a few F-bombs in it, but still, that's okay. Did you put any in this book?
There's only 3 curse words in the entire book, which I only know that because I counted for my mother.
No, your mother's going to read this.
She's currently reading it.
Okay.
And she asked me, she's like, I really love that you didn't put any cussing in it.
That's right. Well, good for you. See, well,
It's surprising that I didn't, given how, just generally vulgar I am.
Yes, okay. Nice. Anyway, Burleson News Express, pick it up at just about anywhere in town, and it's good to see what's going on. Also, another BNI friend, True Climate Heating and Cooling, 682-244-2019. And Will Cobb and his sister Emily Cobb will take care of you. They took care of us about 2 weeks ago. Come check our air conditioner out to make sure that, that we were good to go for the summer, because it is going to get hot sooner or later. I know it's cool today and all that, but still, you don't want to be in June and find out you could have prevented some sort of major expense. And they also have a $99 a year program where you can get a service package, and it really is very, very helpful. And I think one more, yes, there it is. On May 13th at 8:45 to 10:15 at Old South, we're going to have a BNI mixer, so to speak, a networking mixer. It's a visitors day. I've mentioned 3 BNI members on this show, and I'll probably mention I actually mentioned 4 with Jack. And so this is a good place if you're starting a business or you're trying to expand your business. Come and have some breakfast with us, and you find out what we're all about, and no obligation unless you eat and then you owe us. No, it's not like that at all. 8:45 to 10:15 at Old South Pancake House on May 13th. And a couple of days prior to that, I'm going to have a couple of BNI members come and talk about it. I had Stormy Barrett with, the Thrive Council. I'm sorry, dear. I just blanked out just for a second. Stormy Barrett, there you go. Anyway, she came on the show and talked about it. Okay, I was disappointed that Irma didn't show up here, but I know what Irma's doing. If she's listening to the show, she's probably ironing your shirts, and when you get home, there'll be a sandwich made. Because she's a trad wife, isn't she?
About as far from it as you can get.
You walk in and you go, "Woman, beer me." Does that work that way?
I like to be married.
Yeah. Anyway, so I hope Irma hears this later. She'll give me a hard time, but not you, because you were, very loving and kind in your comments prior to the show. There, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Now,
Thank you.
All right. Anyway, this book is science fiction, but it also has a great deal of current value, shall we say. It's based on current trends and whatnot.
Yeah.
So essentially, what is the plot of the book?
Yeah, so it's kind of a near fiction or near future science fiction book. General premise is humanity kind of, almost destroys itself. Kind of relevant to how today feels, right? Or how these days feel.
It seems like it.
Yeah, it seems like it every day. But yeah, humanity almost destroys itself. They, are able to kind of stop and come together, and then a bunch of scientists from around the world come together with this idea to create, utilizing like cutting edge technology, essentially a simulation of reality, with the purpose of studying it and trying to stop big issues.
Irma has
happening.
weighed in. She didn't believe either one of us. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You're good. She derailed me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they try to stop issues from happening again, which is a grand idea, which I will explore more in future books, I assume, assuming that this does well enough to warrant me writing a second one. But this kind of dives more into a singular POV of it from the main character, Ferris, who is a quality assurance engineer.
It's a female character.
It is a female character. It's the character on the front art here, which I did not draw.
Yeah.
Shout out to Monica Grace for this beautiful artwork that she provided for me.
Ferris. So I mean, having a female protagonist is not common in science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started out. I didn't know in which kind of direction I wanted to take, like the gender of the main character. So I just wrote it very ambiguously for probably the first like 16 or 17 chapters. And then I started running into issues with, talking about they, them, and trying to reference like other organizations. And I was mixing up pronouns, getting it just all over the place. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to fix this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it probably is less controversial that way, I suppose, having just a female character and move on, right?
Yeah.
As opposed
I
to
wasn't trying to like purposefully make any kind of like, I don't know, political statement or anything being like they, them. I was just trying to be ambiguous. So the general idea was anybody who reads this book would feel like they could fit into the protagonist role.
Right.
If it was a, male or a female.
Right. Well, and so what gave you this idea?
I've had this kind of grand idea for years. Probably for about 10 years. I've been thinking about this and, kept telling myself, oh, write it down. And in 2023, I wrote it down. I started writing it. I wrote the first 7 to 8 pages, kind of in an afternoon in 2023. Forgot about it and didn't touch it again until January of last year, whenever I remembered I had the idea, went to write it down and realized I had already written it down, and then just kind of got very motivated from there on and wrote the book.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot more than people think to write a book.
It does.
Because they think you just, the ideas and the words just flow out and you just, knock it out. And because they hear about how these other authors, famous authors, are, it just seems so easy for them. But most of the time, they'll tell you, if you read closely enough about their biographies, they'll tell you it's like giving birth almost. It's very difficult to write a book and to be consistent in the theme and in the content and all this other stuff. And I'm sure there was a lot of editing involved.
There was a lot of editing.
Did you have it done by an outside editor?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's writing it, trying to keep the consistency. You're 16, 17 chapters into a book that you're writing and, you're starting to write, about this, newish concept in the book. And you're like, wait a second, does that actually match up with what I said, 13 chapters ago? So there's a lot of kind of brainstorming. I'm good. I write flowcharts for work since, I do software engineer. So I had a flowchart for my book just to make sure that I knew which characters had met each other character. So, if I, all of a sudden they're speaking to each other and they've never met before, that would be confusing. You're like, why do they seem like they know each other? They've never met. So I had a flow chart of like, this person met this person here in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Cause keeping everything consistent in this book, ended up being, right at 30 chapters, with an epilogue, and about 76,000 words.
That's a lot.
That's a little bit, yeah.
So you had to pare that down a bit, or is that approximately what this?
No, that's the final product. The actual, it was actually 81,000 words. Whenever I sent it to the editor.
Okay.
So we pared it down a good bit. I try to pride myself on being pretty good at English, but
So you say you write real good? Is that what you're saying?
write real good.
Yeah, okay. You're from, you could tell you're from Georgia.
I am from Georgia.
Yeah.
I try to think that I'm pretty good at doing that. But I got humbled really quickly whenever my outside editor sent me back. She just sent me, chapter 1, and there are, 115 red marks on it. I'm like, oh man. The editing process itself took like 2.5, 3 months.
Oh yeah. Is this written in first person?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's written in first person. Every chapter is from a different person's point of view. So it's weird. About the first 11, I think, maybe 12 chapters are all from Ferris's point of view, and then after that, I start introducing like other characters' points of view. Kind of similar if you've ever read any of the Game of Thrones books by George R.R. Martin, or if you've ever read any of the Expanse books by James S.A. Corey. It's kind of similar to that writing style.
I don't think I've read any of the Games of Thrones books. Have you read them?
I read the first one, and like I love fantasy, and I love the TV show. But once you start getting into like really hard fantasy stuff, it's hard for me to keep connected to it. It's kind of the same thing with Dune.
Dune, yeah, I've read Dune. You got to be awake to read Dune.
You got to be awake.
I read it a while back, and I put it down because it was in high school. It was just like, this is hitting me too high, and then I read it again a few years later, and I finished it and I understood it better. But still, that Dune is pretty dense.
It's what they call hard sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, if you read books like Dune or similar natures, that it makes assumptions on the reader that when they mention this event or this person or this institution, it's like you should know what they're talking about, and that's kind of tough sometimes. Yeah,
I tried to avoid that in this book. I wanted it to be a fully self-contained story. I do have ideas on expanding it, like kind of writing more books in the universe of this. And where I may go next might be a little bit more kind of like that, like, hey, know a little bit of past events, maybe have read a history book here and there.
Now, simulacrum means what? I mean, is that a made up word? Or?
No, it is actually a word. A simulacrum or simulacrum depends on where you're from, how you pronounce it. It essentially just means a model of something. So if you've ever, bought like a model, building or something that you've gone to or something, you now have a simulacrum of that building.
Wow. You learned something, Josh? You're expanding your vocabulary, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's very eloquent, Anyway.
And then the plural of that word is simulacra. Which if I expand this book series, I will probably just call it the plural of that.
What would motivate you to do it another book like this? Success? If Irma insists on it?
If my wife actually reads it and likes it.
Yeah, okay. She says she's making fun of our shirts. She thinks they're the same shirts, but they're not matching shirts. What is this thing?
I specifically pulled this shirt out because it's, has kind of flower patterns on it, and that's kind of your jazz. So I was like, I'm going to match with them.
My wife bought this shirt a few days ago. This is the first time I've worn it, and Irma's making fun of me. Anyway, so the simulacrum here is what is it a model of?
So, the idea again is that they create a simulation of reality, and they call it in the book the simulacrum.
Okay.
And then they refer to the people who live inside of it as there. And then I made up a word, simulacrumians, which that's getting into some like Dune stuff there, right?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, as far as the process of writing. Again, I was talking about this. I saw a good documentary about Hemingway, which I'm sure you're the next American Hemingway. Anyway,
I love the motivation.
Yeah, there you go. But he would, sit down and write 2 hours a day. longhand, or sometimes you type. What did you do? Did you write longhand? Or,
No.
Well, see,
If I wrote anything actually in handwriting, what will happen is I will, and this happens at work so often. I have right in front of my laptop, I have a little like dry erase board. And what will happen very frequently is I will write something down while I'm talking to somebody. Like, this is really important. Sometimes I'll even surround it in stars. But if I don't actually action it right then, I'll come back 24 hours later and have absolutely no idea what I wrote. And I'll just stare at it and be like, I don't know. Like, I know it was important yesterday to me, I guess, but I don't know what it is. So I knew going into this, I'm like, there's no chance that I'm going to write this down. I mean, I would love to, but I just know that my handwriting, it's not like terrible, but if I like write something in a hurry. So no, I typed the whole thing. I used there's a really nice website called Reedsy, Reedsy, which offers it's free. You can have like a paid service if you want to use their they have like brainstorming tools and stuff like that, but you can use it completely free. But it offered like a place for me to write it. They offer like nice book writing options, like adding chapters, scene breaks, different headers, drop caps, all of the good, book stuff. And probably one of the best features about it, that it's free, is that you can typeset it for free, which whenever, like, the hardest part about getting this thing actually published at the end, not to discredit how hard it was to write the thing and everything, but actually getting it into a format that Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Ingram Spark would take. And that's something that, my editing company, they offered to do it for, like $250, but Reedsy, I had a button that said typeset my book, clicked it, boom, done.
You say typeset the book. I mean, they send you a copy of this?
No, they format it perfectly into a print-ready PDF that can just be easily imported into like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where you don't have to do any editing to the actual print readiness of it. And they also offer where you can push it out as an EPUB version, which is what's needed for like ebooks on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
But to get it to this physical copy, how did you do that?
Yeah, so I used the print ready for the manuscript. So everything inside of this was typeset and just by Reedsy. The cover itself, so my cover artist, she did the art on an actual, I have the hard copy of the watercolor art that she did. She scanned it into a program and made it perfectly 5x5 or 5.5 by 8.5, which is the size of this book. And then I paid somebody on Fiverr.com like $10, and they formatted it perfectly into the actual exact dimensions that you have to do with the cover, manuscript, and all to get it where you can just press print and then you get, a printed version of it.
So if you go on Amazon, you could buy it electronically, or you could buy the physical copy.
Yeah, if you go to the listing on Amazon, you can either buy it. You can buy the hard copy, which I got myself one just so I could have it. For one day my son might be proud of me for having a book, right?
I don't know about that. No.
He might get just embarrassed, like, oh God, here Dad's talking about the book again.
No.
Or you can get a paperback, which you have in front of you. You can also you can buy it on Kindle. I also enrolled in the what's called Kindle Unlimited, where you have to basically agree to be Amazon exclusive for 90 days on the electronic version. But it's where if you pay for the Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for free off of their version. It's like they have a subscription service called Kindle Unlimited where you pay however much per month and you get access to any books that are on that.
Wow, it's a lot of work, though. I bet it was all free. No, it wasn't. So you put some investment in this.
I did.
That's why we need to buy these books, right?
That's why you need to.
Yeah,
we need to take one of these monitors and take one of the hypnotic kind of things and buy my book.
Buy your book. Well, just put little Ivan's picture up. we got to buy this boy a football uniform. No, I know. This again, I'm just gigging on Irma because she wasn't here, and I wanted her to be here so she can gush all over you with pride and adoration for what you've done. But no, it's in the library. No,
it is at the Burleson Library too.
Is that right?
Yeah, I donated a copy to the Burleson Library, so anybody can go check it out. If you don't want to buy it, please buy it.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to buy it, or maybe you can't afford it, that's fine too. You can go to Burleson Library and check it out.
Well, does Barnes and Noble have it in the local bookstore?
So it's not in their bookstore yet. You have to meet like certain qualifications. Like I need, in order for Barnes and Noble to come to me and be like, hey, we're going to put it in the store, I probably need to sell, probably like 1,000 copies or so. But it is on barnesandnoble.com.
Okay.
Same thing, hard copy, paperback, not the ebook yet. Got to wait 90 days because I have the exclusivity with Amazon, but
Half Price often sells new books as well.
okay.
Recently published books. You might want to check them out.
Okay.
Because everybody thinks Half Price is used books. No, they have. I know they have a small section of latest publications that have come out, and they're new books, and they're like 20% off instead of half price.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that process works.
A lot of the other not Barnes and Noble, Amazon, they use this system called Ingram Spark to get all of their books. My book is on there, so if anybody is listening from any of those corporate, it's on Ingram Spark. You can buy it in bulk. You get a bulk discount if you were to buy 100 at a time.
Maybe some English class in Burleson High School could read it. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it?
That would be good.
Yeah.
It's not controversial. I don't think I would end up on any Texas book ban. I think we're good.
Oh yeah, it's not going to end up.
I don't think Ted Cruz would get upset about it.
Oh, okay, fine.
He might read it on one of his trips to Cancun next February.
Okay, all right. You opened up the door. We're going to talk politics at the end. I was going to be a good sport, but now we're going to talk politics in a minute. How about Josh? Can you pull up the Amazon page? I think so everybody get a look. What time of day did you write this? Like some writers, it's like late at night or midnight or whatever. They're very eccentric. And
I hope, Irma, you are listening to this.
Yeah.
She gives me grief all the time. She is like, he has time to write a book. I'm like, well, not really. What I would do is every night after my son, was finally asleep in bed after we, fought with, that.
Been there. Yeah. I could dig it.
I would go into my office and I would just pull up and I would try to write as much as I could, and just until I ran out of ideas or until it was too late and I felt like I needed to go to bed.
All right. Well, here it is on the screen. So it must be kind of a thrill to see your book on Amazon. Cool. It really, it's pretty. Look at and similar items, But anyway, so look at this. I mean, it would be kind of a rush for me if I had a book on there on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I could show it and put it up there and say, "There, look at the book," and say, "How much are you charging for it?" I can't read it as well.
Yeah, paperback is $14.99. Hardcover is $22.99.
What a bargain!
Well, you would be surprised to know that I do not make anywhere near that much per copy sold.
Oh, I know. No, Amazon's well known for taking a big piece of the apple there.
I make roughly about, for either version, it doesn't matter if you buy Kindle, hardcover, or paperback, I make about the same on each copy, which is about $3.60.
Yeah, I know Amazon is not cheap. Yeah. I'm sure Barnes & Noble also takes a pretty hefty cut too.
But I mean, they offer the ability to print and print on demand, which is really nice, and something that if I were to try to print it myself, you would have to buy 1,000 copies at a time, and then I have 1,000 copies sitting at my house that I have to try to sell manually. They do take some, but I appreciate kind of why.
Well, I got it, but because Amazon is so ubiquitous these days. I mean, and my wife uses it to buy stuff. And, for me, buying books on Amazon, I do it guiltily, though, because I'm a bit much older than y'all. I remember bookstores were pretty common, and now it's the only place to get a hard copy book right then. Now is Barnes and Noble, which I was surprised when they opened up an outlet here in Burleson.
Oh yeah, they're kind of coming back. Like
Yeah.
their business is actually doing really well these days.
But I remember, gosh, every mall had a B. Dalton bookstore or Walden book store, or they had one of my favorites is over in Dallas in the Galleria called Shakespeare and Beethoven.
Okay.
And that's gone since about 20 years ago, and there were also just standalone bookstores. And I know there's one over in Dallas, and see, there's one in, I would advise, the Bird Cafe, a Bird Book store, something like that. It's over off Preston and Royal. I know that much.
Okay.
And they would probably allow you to bring some of your books in a book signing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're about, is local artists and writers and things of that nature. I mean, you can buy the latest John Grisham book, I guess, or whatever, but it's mostly, but they do focus on that. And so that's the kind of thing, back in my younger days, I thought it'd be cool to have a bookstore.
Yeah.
And, and it wasn't such a far off fantasy 25 years ago until Jeff Bezos said no. And so that took care of that. I mean,
It's crazy to think that Amazon actually started as a bookstore.
Yeah, it really is.
That's all it was.
But no, but you got to, these smaller bookstores. I know there's another one in Waco, and then you might have to drive to Waco. I know it'd kill you. It'd kill Irma. I know that much. I know. Take her to Magnolia, the silos, and all that business.
We've been there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's actually where I met Irma's mom for the first time.
Is that right?
It is right.
It'd be very, very fitting if young Ivan goes to Baylor. I'm just saying. Anyway,
Hey, if he gets a full ride anywhere, I'll be down. You go there.
Well, since he's going to be known as the bone crusher on the football field, who knows? But the thing about these small bookstores, they were the lifeblood of authors like yourself.
Yeah.
Because, you have to make the circuit and go do a signing and all this other stuff. You don't see much of that anymore. No. And, us old men getting that good old days syndrome back in the day. But there were some things that were better, I think, than now. I mean, like going to bookstores.
Yeah, everything's a chain now.
Yeah.
There's very little mom and pop.
Right.
It's hard to do it.
Or you would used to go like record stores.
Yeah.
You didn't see what come out. Now it's
I love that those are coming back. We're just going full circle.
Well, I think
cassettes are coming back too now. Like they're starting to
cassettes. Now that I could pass on.
And VHS. Like apparently, Gen Z are getting back into VHS.
Well, I don't why. Just for the retro feel of it,
I guess.
I could understand vinyl, but as far as that, we still got a bunch of VHS, and I've been told it's got some value. Like they appreciate and value. What is that all about?
Yeah,
but anyway,
I gotta tell my mom to pull out our old. We had a Titanic two VHS box set original. So that might be worth some money.
Yeah, the laser disc.
That thing that lasted like 2 years.
Yeah, or the Betamax.
Oh yeah,
that was quite the deal. You had to have a cassette the size of a piece of luggage. But the thing about, going to these old bookstores, though, is that I still enjoy doing that. But then, if you want a book, it's hard to beat Amazon's pricing.
Yep.
And, so I am reluctant when I do that. Most of the books I buy are half price anyway. But if I want a new publication, it is a moral quandary because I want to support local.
Yeah.
But when they're charging you $40 and Amazon's giving it to you for 26 and you get it the next day, it's hard to beat that.
It is, yeah. And that's the world we live in. It's the beast, right? Yeah. I have to be on Amazon.
Oh yeah. But I would suggest that if you have the time, you call some of these independent bookstores and say, hey, I have a published book. What would it take for me to come and do a book signing one Saturday afternoon?
Absolutely.
And you might sell a couple of books, but it's just it's going to be
a couple here and there.
That's exactly where I was going. It's these books are just flying off the shelves. Almost all of them either are by established writers or they were made into some sort of TV or movie or some show. And that's when they started flying off the shelves.
It would be a dream. It would be wonderful. If like Apple TV calls me and they're like, "Hey, we want to turn your book into a movie," I'm like, this is wonderful.
It'll be life-changing money.
A little bit.
Yeah. And
Then Irma would be happy.
then she'd be happy. Go, see, I told you.
Yeah, just then I can get that "I told you so" on you.
Yeah, that's what makes marriages work. Is I told you so. Yeah, well,
Really healthy one.
Well, yeah, but Robin was somewhat similar in her feeling about me starting this podcast, and it's worked. We've I don't make a lot of money doing this. I could promise you. I've made a little bit of folding money basically, and it's about it.
He has a Rolls Royce outside.
Yeah, no, no, that's Josh's Rolls Royce.
I wish.
You wish, yeah. Well, don't wreck that one. He has a track record here.
No.
Right? That's when he's driving the Mommobile right now.
Yeah, no, I'm a magnet for traffic incidents in Texas. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
None of them being my fault, though.
Yes, yeah, of course.
My wife likes to refer to those as unplanned collisions.
Unplanned
exactly what it
collisions. Yeah, okay.
And someone runs a red light going 20 miles over the speed limit, you can only do so much, right?
Yeah. You can.
Well, back to the content here. I said, Irma says, I bet Robin loves it when you tell her I told you so. I never have the opportunity because she's always right.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. The women know it.
I love it and I hate it. I love it because it makes life easier because it's like just listen. All you have to do is listen to her, but then you have the stubborn part of your head that it's like I ain't listening to her, and then you have to find out you're wrong all on your own.
Not listening to no skirt, and then you end up regretting it. But there you go. But no, back to what I was talking about. It says that she had the same trepidations because there was some investment involved. There still is. I got bills to pay through this enterprise, but you need to sell a few books and you break even, and then you can do it again. And my point is that it particularly if you're able to do a series, sooner or later, I bet somebody will notice. There's all these streaming services out there that are doing and looking for content. I wouldn't doubt it. Hey, there's this guy who's wrote about 3 of these books, and they're, I assume that if you do write more books, it's going to be, tied to this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have other ideas.
So. Oh, okay. So maybe, would you do a second book that's totally different from this one?
I think if I write a second one in this universe, it's going to be a prequel.
A prequel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of explaining more about I don't know. I've always wanted to write kind of like a political thriller and how did humanity get to almost destroying itself?
Prequels are in.
Yeah.
A lot of series do the prequels like Lord of the Rings or the Planet of the Apes or whatever else. They're all prequels.
Sometimes they're good.
Well, yeah. The Lord of the Rings prequels on Amazon are pretty good, but it helps if you've at least seen the movie. But if you read the book, it's even better.
I haven't seen that on Amazon yet. I know they're spending $1 billion a season, but
it's Bezos money. That's just folding money for him.
Yeah, just chump change.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just my unasked for advice. That's a good place to at least get some recognition or whatever. I don't know how to go about that, but there you go. I mentioned earlier I've been asked would I like to write a book? Particularly since I'm semi-retired now, and it'd be nonfiction for me.
You should.
I think about it, but the stories that interest me either have been written a lot about already, or I don't want to write a nonfiction book that's based on everybody else's writings.
Yeah.
All right. And you get to that sometimes in history books, they don't do the original research, and that takes a lot of work to do original research.
It does. Yeah.
And so
if I was ever going to, 10 years ago when I thought I'm ever going to write a book, I was like, I'm never going to do nonfiction. I mean, I have done enough research getting my degrees. I do enough research and work. I'm good. Like I'm going to make stuff up, and you can believe it or not. It doesn't matter.
And plus the stories that also interest me, if it's nonfiction, the people that experienced this probably are passed away by now.
Yeah.
You know, because, like if I want to do a book on World War II, for example, we have very few veterans left.
Yep. Very few and getting fewer each day.
And, also if I want to do a book on Vietnam even, the veterans there, they're in their 80s now.
Yep.
And so it's kind of tough. I don't know. And also I'm kind of lazy. That's a big deal. I want to switch gears on you here for a minute. You know what's coming, don't you? Yeah. 2 years ago, you ran for city council. You got any thoughts about the next?
I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I was on here.
Yes, you
twice.
Were. Right, and
this is actually my fourth time on.
Mm-hmm. You gonna do it again?
Maybe.
Come on, politicians. Maybe. I know you have to get permission first.
It really depends. At no point do I want to subject Burleson to a like a fight, right? I don't want to have any kind of nasty campaign, and I don't want to run against anybody who may or may not cause that to happen, similar to last time. So because it started towards the end of the last time, started getting a little bit flaky,
a little bit personal.
And, started pulling up some stuff in my past and stuff. There's, somebody found something I posted on Facebook when I was 14 years old, and
oh yeah,
I'm like, brother, I was 14 years old.
Well, yeah, but
said a lot of edgy stuff when I was 14.
Yeah, so did Brett Kavanaugh. Look what happened to him.
He's still a Supreme Court justice.
And doing a darn good job. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. What I've told the story on the air before, but when I was retiring from BHS, which is now 10 years ago, I had a couple of my peers say, "Hey, now that you're retired, you can run for school board." And I thought, yeah, that might be a way to stay involved. I go home to Robin, and I didn't even finish my sentence. I was thinking about running. No, you're not running for anything. And I understand your reasoning because, you don't want to have to relitigate things that you did in the past or said in the past that may not have been your best moment.
Yeah.
I made mistakes. I made bad decisions over the course of my lifetime, and I don't want to have to answer for that in some public forum.
The thing I think I hate the most in today's political climate is that it seems like people almost criticize you for changing opinions too. Mm-hmm. So people looked at who I was like when I was 14, right? I was like, I'm in my mid 30s now. Who I was when I was 14 is radically different from who I am now, or even 10 years ago when I was in my mid 20s is a completely different person than who I am now, both personally, politically, everything. But then people are like, well, why'd you change? I got older. I learned more. I accepted other opinions. Why is that a bad thing?
I get that some because, I had a certain reputation, let's say in high school, being pretty conservative, and I still am. Yeah. But when I post something or say something that isn't along the conservative orthodoxy, some people look at me like, why are you, changing? Why?
All of a sudden they're like, oh, Brad Allard's a rhino.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I get that some, and it is what it is. I could be as upset about that as I want, but
that's the thing. If you ever were to run for anything, you just gotta, some of the stuff that people say to you, you just gotta bounce it off.
And I've talked to people that hold office, like the mayor and Victoria Johnson and others, and some have the ability to shrug it off. But I know that I've talked with the mayor, and he said the first couple of years of being mayor were kind of hard on him because people would expect him to vote certain ways, and he couldn't or wouldn't, and they felt like you betrayed me, Mr. Mayor, and that kind of stuff. And no, that's not how this works. But he took it pretty hard. A little while down, he's much more adept at shrugging it off, but it took a while.
I'm sure.
It's like I told him, it was like school teaching. I mean, teachers have to develop kind of a thick hide because kids are pretty frank in their opinions.
I'm sure eventually somebody's going to message me and say like, "Hey, your book sucks."
No,
I'm sure. Like, I'm sure eventually I'm going to log into Amazon one day and see like a 1-star review, and that's fine. Not everybody is going to like it, and if you do buy it and read it and like it, leave a review.
Well, what I would say to that 1-star review is thanks for reading the book. That's kind of like when I get criticized for something, I say thanks for watching. Now, the truth of the matter is, because our politics locally in Burleson has calmed down some in the last 3 years or so, I don't get that nearly as often as I did before.
Yeah.
Well,
probably ebbs and flows with, presidential years too.
Well,
or midterms and.
Well, there's also the tremendous amount of fatigue that a lot of the people are feeling about this going on in what's going on in this country, the inundation of day after day assaults from either side.
Yeah.
Either not so much directed towards me personally or towards you personally, but just towards the American people.
No, it's from every direction.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are just exhausted.
I remember in 2004, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in, I'm gonna give away kind of my age here, but in 2004, I was in 8th grade, and I remember it was the year, of Kerry versus Bush. And I felt like there was so much apathy about voting. And I remember at that time just telling, my parents and people, I was like, I wish more people were involved. Like, I wish more people had an opinion. And now I feel like every single person and their sister has an opinion one way or the other because of social media's explosion. And I'm like,
and it's not just, not only is my opinion right, but yours is stupid.
Yeah.
Not just.
Yeah, like, God forbid you have any difference of opinion. Like, you're wrong. And let me tell you why you're wrong and why you're,
morally deficient.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to talk about that on Tuesday's show a little bit because I think it's at the point now that because one side does it, the other side feels justified to doing it themselves. And it's like there is no turning of the other cheek.
No, and it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like it, but like, they're, Senate, they're talking about getting rid of the filibuster. I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Like, it might benefit you now, but eventually you're going to lose control of Congress, and you will not like it. And I promise you, you're gonna talk about how bad it is. And I was like, well, you did this, like,
right?
But you're right, like, it's a slippery slope. Like, one side does it, and then the other side feels obligated that they have to do it too,
and with a little bit extra.
Yeah.
They have to one up.
Yeah, one up everybody.
Yeah. Well, I remember specifically about the filibuster, when they did away with it for judges in 2013, the Republicans said, you guys are going to regret that. And then, boy, does the Democrats.
They regret it now.
They regret it now because that's how you got 3 Trump picks on the Supreme Court.
Soon to be 4.
You think so?
Oh, Alito will retire.
Well, I read that he's saying he's not, but, maybe just.
I mean, hey, if he wants to pull an RBG and accidentally wait till the next Democratic administration, go for it, but cough, cough.
No, wait a minute. That'll be 30 years from now. Don't you know how we're rigging the vote? Come on, man.
Oh, yeah, the Voting Rights Act was gutted yesterday.
No, that's a different topic, and I would say we're going to have to agree to disagree on the value of that opinion, okay? Just leave it at that, I
think we can both agree gerrymandering is bad.
It's horrendous.
Especially partisan gerrymandering.
It's one of the worst things that's happened to this country.
Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason.
See, you ought to come on the show in about a month and we talk politics. I got plenty of time, or this summertime, I got plenty of stuff. We can just talk politics.
Yeah.
It means he'll stop asking me stuff.
Yes, I know it. Well, we were about to ask you that just now. So what do you think, Josh, about the gerrymandering problem?
It's out of control.
Okay. See,
there you go. That's it.
Is that hard?
No.
It's bad, okay?
Well, yeah, so we had to do this. We can talk about Texas politics, whatever. By that time, I'm sure we'll have Tallarico's opponent, which I pray to God it's Cornyn, not because I've made it pretty clear I am not voting for Ken Paxton. I can't do that. Look myself in the face and
call. He's a terrible person.
Well, I sit there and talk about values, and I can't. I've been criticized because I'm not voting for Paxton regardless.
Yep.
It's like until the Republicans get the message that you can't keep sending us people like Ken Paxton, then nothing's going to change.
Yep.
And I've had some criticism for saying that on the show or putting it on Facebook, which I'm about to quit doing, because it's not worth it. But, they're criticizing, well, then you must want, so-and-so, Beto O'Rourke or Tallarico or whatever. Not really, but, if I don't say no, then the Republicans will keep sending me guys like Ken Paxton.
Yep.
And that's how it works. I haven't changed my politics that much. I'm pretty conservative, but part of being conservative is not just accepting how people conduct themselves, and just because they have an R after their name, I'm going to automatically vote for them.
Well, it's it's making them watch for your opinion.
Yeah, well,
it's no the thing. I respect most about you, Brad, as a conservative.
What is that?
No, is that you, regardless of your political stance, and this is something that I think has been lost on a lot of today's GOP leaders, and I mean, frankly, some Democratic leaders too, though, is that they've decided to put party over country. And at no point do I think that you have ever decided to put anything over the country first.
I appreciate that. It's very kind. I like to think that, normally, what's happened with me politically is that I haven't really changed, but the parties have changed. So to a point where I'm leaving a lot of offices blank in election time.
This is, that whole thing is why, back, you asked me in, the year 2002, plus, I'm 12 years old. My opinion doesn't matter, but I really dislike George Bush. But I look back now and I'm like, yeah, I wasn't necessarily, I didn't agree with his decisions, but I truly believe that for him, at the end of the day, everything that he did because he thought he was improving the country, which is something I cannot say about Trump.
Well, I had that same kind of moderation of my opinion to Mr. Carter. He's president of my high school days, and I thought he was a completely lost,
terrible president. But he thought he was doing what was best for the country. Same thing for HW, same thing for Clinton, same thing for Bush. They thought they were doing the best for the country. And then after that, it started becoming more like, well, how can I enrich my party, myself, my friends, my peers, instead of, how can I make America, oh my God, I just about said that, completely unprompted. Make America great.
Yeah, oh boy.
But
you'll be making your own sandwich to get home for that one.
Yeah, unironically though, make America a great place to live, a great country and everything. And all of those presidents were doing that. And then you get to today and it's just like, let me make myself better. Let me put, there's literally bills right now to put his face on Mount Rushmore. They're putting his signature on all money. They're putting his face on passports. It's like, this is not what it's about. We should be honoring put George Washington's face on, the passport, the actual founding father of this country.
Put Ronald Reagan.
Sure.
No, well, I joke about it, but Reagan is my favorite president. Okay. Yeah. Because I thought at the end of the day, he was pretty conservative, but he was willing to negotiate and take the majority as a win and call it a day. And he wasn't interested in crushing the Democrats and all this other business. And the Democrats at the time really liked him.
He did crush them in the electoral vote.
But how about
that? Was probably, what was that, in
84?
Yeah, that was the biggest upset.
Yeah, well,
or not. It wasn't an upset, but the biggest defeat,
landslide. Yeah, well,
I think only Minnesota and DC were the only two I think that win.
It wasn't so much, but when I say crush the Democrats, I mean he wasn't out there to destroy them personally or politically. Yeah, so. And in my day, I remember with Reagan, there were a lot of people didn't like Reagan, but I didn't ever see that, just the intense emotional animosity. Okay.
Well, back
You know.
even then, and even I would say as recent as Bush, there was an expectation of, even if you disagreed with their opinions, you still respected the office of the presidency.
Right.
That has stopped at this point. There's like,
And the thing about, and also on the Reagan issue, when there was a lot of people that loved Reagan, but not to this level that it's almost like a religious fervor. Okay. And that, but I mean, I thought Reagan was a really good president, and I have books about Reagan, but I haven't, I was driving down I-45 to go to Corsicana from Dallas to see my mother. And there was a sign that was somewhere on I-45 in the country that had Trump and Christ in the same billboard. And I thought, this is just nuts. All right. Reagan would have been appalled at something like that. Certainly the Bushes would have been.
Yep.
I think, Bill Clinton, I think, would have been appalled. I
mean, there's a billboard close to where I grew up that it actually says, "Jesus loves you even if you're a Democrat."
And do you think that's just trolling you?
No, because I've known what that sign has said previously, because it's the same guy has owned it. It used to just say Jesus, then it said Trump, and then it switched back to Jesus, and then it switched to Jesus loves you even if you're a Democrat.
Well, how nice.
Yes.
Well, that's true though.
I mean,
but Jesus is an exceptionally good sport. Now, we're getting away from this. We need to talk about the nonprofit stuff coming up. We don't have a whole lot, do we? We have the Stand Conference this Saturday, which we'll be there for. This is Colin Gregory's outreach program, so to speak. And we talk about social media anxiety, and what to look for with your kids. It was very appropriate for this time of year in the summertime. And so, it's going to start at 9:00. The doors open at 8:00. There's going to be several vendor tables there. That's when I say vendors. They're not so much selling you stuff, but making people aware of what they do. Okay. And B and I will be there for that too. So, but Stand Conference is the Safety Summit 2026. It's a big deal over at Pathway. Again, starts at 9:00. The tickets there on the QR code. You can check that out. Also, lunch is provided by the Rim, so that's always good. And the Honey Tour, I'm going to have Monday. I'm going to have Lucy and Ethel, I call them. Melissa and Candace are going to be on that show. I feel like after that we're done with that show, I just feel like I've been run through the car wash because they have a lot of energy.
Yep.
And they're a lot of fun. And but they got the Honey Tour coming up in about 3 weeks, and along with the carnival, which is a big deal. You can take Little Ivan to the carnival.
He will be there.
Sure. And I bet he'll have a friend with him, right?
Maybe.
You think so? I know. Oh, no. All right. Irma says we love Colin. So there you go. He's a very fine man. He really is. And he does a lot for this community.
We ended up one night, we went to American Revelry and realized, I was sitting next to him. Like, I'm pretty certain I know that guy. Mm-hmm. And then I asked him, and, we just,
It was Colin?
It was Colin, and we just...
It was his wife with him and all that? Yeah, okay.
I think they were actually celebrating their anniversary.
How nice. Well, they're so lovely.
So were we, actually, that evening.
When is your anniversary?
Technically, it's February 29th, because we got married on February 29th of 2020, right before the world went crazy. Mm-hmm. So we celebrate.
Was that a factor in it? You saw COVID coming and you said we would get married?
No, we had no idea. We went to the Dominican for our honeymoon, shut off all of our phones and everything, just disconnected, and then we came back and we're like, what's going on? But no, we celebrate on about March the 1st-ish every year.
Kind of like Twilight Zone. There's so many episodes like that, ours, mine and my beloved, we have our anniversary May 28th. It'll be 38 wonderful years.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Some days you'll think, wow, I can't believe we've made it this long.
We'll be at,
it's still a good deal.
We'll be at 7 soon. So
7. You're just a rookie. All right. Anyway, Monday, like I said, I'm going to have the Chamber of Commerce on, and we're going to talk about the Honey Tour, and also they have a golf tournament in June. We're going to talk about that, and also, of course, Business Over Breakfast, which is maybe you ought to drop by and flog your book a bit. Hey.
Just carry this everywhere I go.
No,
and
well, I tell you what, that's what I've learned a lot about that kind of marketing thing, not just through BNI, but just doing this. It's a 24/7 gig. I mean, people aren't just going to find you.
Yeah.
Also, Tuesday, I'm going to talk about the Iran war, because things have been going on.
It's a little controversial.
I'm not as opposed to it as some, but I'm not unaware of the cost. Let's put it that way. But as older than both you boys, we've been dealing with Iran for a long time, and so I understand what's happening from this perspective a little bit. So we'll be talking about that, and maybe, I don't know, whatever else I want to rant about.
Good old rant show.
Yeah, rant. Well, that's what I call it. I call it the rant. And so, but we're going to talk about that. And
you should have a separate logo for your rant shows. You should have where it like crosses out and gives you an idea for,
No. It's just
all the colors
place.
are negative.
Yeah, you're right. No, you got to keep the green and gold motif. Place where your title,
cut out neighborhood and just Mr. Allard's rant hour.
Rant hour of rant. Okay, now you've given him an idea. He said, I don't know about that. Okay. Anyway,
no, I have Photoshop on this computer. I'll get to work.
Thanks, and thank you.
Expect to see it on Tuesday.
I was going to let you talk about your book one last time, but no. All right, tell us what we need to know about the simulacrum or simulacrum or shrinking.
Yes,
whatever.
If you like science fiction, you're gonna love it. If you don't like science fiction, but you like philosophical themes, there's a little bit of political themes in there too. If you like that, you're gonna love it. If you like books like my mind just completely went blank. The Expanse. If you like Game of Thrones, if you like Westworld, if you like the Wool series, which is Silo now on Apple TV, all of those tells me you would love this book.
I like Silo because of Rebecca Ferguson.
She's a great actress.
That too. Anyway.
Oh, Brad.
All right. Anyway, so while Irma's on there, give her your sandwich order.
Read my book.
Yeah, all right.
My wife still hasn't read my book.
Oh my! All right, we got to go. I've picked on Irma. Poor thing. She's very sensitive. And we'll see y'all next Monday. We're gonna have some more fun with the girls from the chamber. It's always a fun show. Thank you, Josh.
Anytime.
All right, and stay away from the Photoshop. All right, and we'll see y'all next week.